And here we are again with another tier list. Before we begin the Led Zeppelin tier list, thank you for joining. And also, I wanted to mention that I'd like to do more of these, but I need to figure out a format. So it turns out, a couple years ago, 2019 December, I made a tier lists video, and it's about 45 minutes long, and I actually reviewed Pink Floyd stuff, and my rankings changed, which they would over time anyway, because that's just how it goes. As time changes, life changes, opinions change, I think. And I did Final Fantasy, Metroid, Mario, Star Wars, all kinds of stuff. The White Stripes, Nine Inch Nails, Pixies, Gizzard, Bowie. Bowie could use a deeper dive. I only spent 5 minutes on Bowie albums. Now, before we begin, two things. Please leave a comment if you have any background music suggestions. For the time being, I'm going with Metroid Prime 2, but I don't really know what kind of background music would work for these videos. And would you like to see deeper dives into stuff like with Pink Floyd and Zeppelin? Or would you like to see maybe videos with a couple tier lists? Or both? Let me know. I don't know. This is one of those things that's kind of new. It's fun. I like ranking things. I don't know what the human propensity for ranking things is, but I definitely have it. So let me know what you think. But first, let's do a deep dive into Led Zeppelin. So now keep in mind, I do keep the Wikipedia open because I haven't listened to some of these albums in a couple years, and I need to know what songs are what. But, you know, which albums have which songs, let's put it that way. But I do know these albums pretty well. It's not a huge discography, less than Floyd, but we'll start at the beginning with Zeppelin 1. So for me, Zeppelin 1 is A tier. I would even say it kind of borders on S tier, because Zeppelin is one of those bands that does not really have, like, a terrible album, in my opinion. And this is a band I do really enjoy. For those that don't know who Led Zeppelin is, it is late 60s, 70s rock band. They were one of the most popular bands ever, so maybe you know. But they were kind of like the template for so many rock bands that followed. And, you know, for me, I'm just going to talk about the music and the songs that are on the albums, and not the specific events of the band or the members, even though I do think pretty much every member is the best of their respective instrument, or close to it. So it's really hard to recreate that Zeppelin chemistry. I don't think any band really did so, and to me, they're one of the best ever. You know, so of course a tier list would be perfect. First album starts with Good Times, Bad Times, which was their first single. I love that song. To me, that's like one of the best first songs / first singles ever. And I love the drums. Already Bonham is fully formed as a drummer. Page is sounding amazing. The chemistry's there. I know some people aren't into Robert Plant's vocals, like his vocal wailing, and sometimes it gets a little grating, but I do find his voice very enjoyable in the right circumstances. He's got a really nice tone when he's doing softer stuff, and the power and the fucking pitch of that dude's voice is just insane in those first couple albums. So I think Good Times, Bad Times alone is just incredible. Then you have Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. One of the first songs I learned to play on guitar. It still is something that I think is impressive to listen to. It's like a almost 7-minute song, so they're more of an album band, even though they did have some good singles. And they do have songs that border on the longer side. There was a video that I wanted to mention this before we continued about, like, music theft and Led Zeppelin, which is like, well, what stuff is more folk music that evolved, that they borrowed, paid homage to, and what was like the scummy stealing? I'm not going to go into that, but I think it was... Let me just make sure. Was it Led Zeppelin? Polyphonic Led Zeppelin. You have a couple different videos from 6 months ago. If you want to get really deep into what Zeppelin did in their time as one of the most influential bands, you know, for example, there's a video called "Did Led Zeppelin Steal Their Music?" They could do a way better job at explaining it than I could over at the Polyphonic channel, so I'd recommend that. I'm just going to talk about how I enjoy the songs and how nice they are to listen to on my ear holes. So, for example, You Shook Me is the next song on this album. Willie Dixon is credited as a writer. In fact, Page isn't even listed as a writer on this. Same for Dazed and Confused, who is credited to Jake Holmes. I'm sure a lot of this had to do with, court stuff. But You Shook Me is pretty good, even if it's very traditional. They were able to do the white boy blues very well, with a lot of power, and I think they did genuinely love that music, and I would say they brought a lot of attention to it. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Dazed and Confused is obviously a famous song of theirs. I think it meanders a little much, but I kind of still love it. There's a song called Your Time Is Gonna Come, which is the next one. I love that song. Great John Paul Jones organ. Really cool melody. I think it's an underrated song of theirs that I don't think enough people know about or talk about. Black Mountainside is a nice little instrumental. Communication Breakdown is great. Really good, quick pop song with high energy. I would have loved to have seen Zeppelin live, so that would have been a fun one to see. And that's like, again, even though they quote-unquote borrowed music, and they did, some of it they stole, I think. But their original compositions were so good, they didn't really need to. Which is why I do think that Page, in many cases, was just playing what came to mind. It's like, hey, let's start a jam with this cool song that we grew up with. And then it turned into, wait, this is really, really good. We should record this. Which is why I wish they would have credited the musicians more. They did. On Wikipedia, it's listed as Dixon. So Willie Dixon wrote I Can't Quit You, Baby. But even so, within that, they contributed their own parts, their own melodies here and there, their own feel to the song. So I feel like it becomes kind of its own thing. But is it in a cover? Is it an homage? I don't know. Again, watch that video. How Many More Times is also a lot of fun. And it's got a cool riff. Zeppelin, but Page in particular, was one of the best riff writers in all of rock. This, to me, is one of the most solid starting albums for a band that will go on to become massive. Great variety of stuff. Less variety than their usual stuff. Not as many, like, ballady kind of things, but still, I think Zeppelin 1 is just phenomenal. I would recommend it. If you're looking to start with Zeppelin, you could start at the beginning, because then you get Zeppelin 2, which I'm going to also put in A tier, and I'm going to say I like it better than Zeppelin 1. I think Zeppelin 2, very cleverly named album, by the way, Led Zeppelin 2. I think it's even better because you have a whole lot of love. I do like that song, even if the sex noises get a little bit much for me. I don't always want to listen to that part of the song, but I do think it's a fun song to listen to. Also attributed to Dilly Dixon. What? Willie Dixon. What Is and What Should Never Be is awesome. There's a great live performance of that song on the Zeppelin DVD. I think that's another underrated one. It's a fan favorite, but still underrated in a catalog with so many massive songs. Love it. Lemon Song is another traditional kind of song that was turned into their own thing. Squeeze the lemon till the juice runs down my leg is a lyric in that song. And you know what? I thought that was a Robert Plant Horny lyric. No. That was, apparently, it started Robert Johnson's Traveling Riverside Blues. It's likely that Johnson borrowed this himself, it says, from a song recorded earlier in the same year called She Squeezed My Lemon. So, like, everyone's borrowing everything from everyone and everything, but why squeezing a lemon of all things? Also, from what I understand, the Lemon Song's bass line was improvised by John Paul Jones, again, Zeppelin's secret weapon. Love that dude. Love his music. Love his arrangements. And I think Lemon Song is fantastic. Great bass line. Thank You is a ballad. It's become a bit of a wedding song. And again, some good live versions. Heartbreaker is just, you know, again, really good riff. like one of their best riffs, and also just powerful, good solo in the middle, great live song. Livin' Loving Maid is next, but I don't think that song is all that amazing. I really don't love it that much, but my classic rock station here in New York would always play the two back to back, so yeah, give it or take it. Ramble On, one of their best songs. I just instantly perk up when I hear that song. Maybe one of the first Zeppelin songs that I ever consciously said to myself, holy shit, that's really good. And there's a Gollum and Mordor reference. So very Lord of the Ringsy. John Paul Jones hits garbage pails in it for percussion for some of it. So I like that a lot. Moby Dick is an instrumental, more just John Bonham doing crazy solos live vehicle, but still cool riff. These riffs just seem effortless for these guys. Bring It On Home, and again, another song credited to Willie Dixon, as well as the rest of the band, and I think it's fun. Great riff, great feel to it. I just really enjoy it. Good live song, good harmonica. Sorry if a lot of this is the same kind of stuff that I'm saying over and over again, but it's true. Great album. Maybe a little bit of evolution, maybe some more highs on the album. Like I think Heartbreaker, Ramble On, What Is and What Should Never Be alone are A tier. Like boost this to A tier. But then stuff like Living Lovin' Maid, you know, Moby Dick is an instrumental. I don't really love them that much, but I do love those songs. I listed plus Whole Lotta Love and Thank You. So great album. Easy to listen to, and a good next album. It's kind of more of the same, but slight evolution. But then you have Zeppelin Three, which I'm not sure where I'm going to place it. Now keep in mind, over here, that is the one that I would say is better than the one over here. That's how I'm going to do my tier lists. The closer they are to the letter, the more I like them. This could change in a couple years, but these are my thoughts for the time being. So, Zeppelin 3. Oh man, do I like this even more? Yeah, I do. I love Zeppelin 3, actually. Zeppelin 3 was not received particularly well by fans immediately because people were like, oh, why is it so acoustic? And it kind of leans into folk music. I remember reading about that, and I couldn't understand it because this has got some really fucking heavy songs on it. But I think I like the softer side of Zeppelin because if they're doing more folk stuff and acoustic stuff, they could do it as well as anybody. But you start with Immigrant Song, which is... I mean, come on. It's Immigrant Song. That was in the Thor movie. And the Jack Black movie, somehow. And I think it's really one of their best. It's one of their simplest, most intense. It's about Vikings. It's got a fucking killer riff. It is, in and of itself, I think, one of their best songs. So, good start. Friends is good. The next song on the album, Friends, is a lot of fun. It's about friends. It's acoustic. But it's got some really crazy vocals by Plant. So I feel like his vocals are somehow getting even better. Celebration Day is a great song. A lot of fun. They named their comeback tour after this. And, again, cool guitar stuff on this in particular. And I love the way the guitar sounds. The guitar solos. God, Jimmy Page was so good at that shit. Better in the studio than live. It's kind of a sloppy live guitarist. But then again, the amount of chances he took as a solo guitarist, as a lead guitarist, it's just like he would just try shit. And they would be on stage improvising so much. So, I love hearing it. It's fascinating to listen to and watch. Then you have Since I've Been Loving You, which is definitely in my top 5 Zeppelin. I really grew to appreciate the song as I got older. When I got through my Zeppelin phase the first time, I think I was 17, 18, into my early 20s. But for like a year and a half, I was obsessive about Zeppelin. And that Led Zeppelin DVD of their live shit came out in 2003. And that was the perfect time for that to come out. Watching Jimmy Page and the rest of the band play Since I've Been Loving You was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to play guitar. I got a Les Paul a couple years later. So, huge influence. But when I revisit Zeppelin every like couple years, maybe 3-4 years at a time, I take a break, I listen to them again. But the last revisit, that song really, really responded with me. I don't know why. It's just something about it. So, Out on the Tiles is pretty amazing. I think it's just a fun riff. Not even amazing, but just a good, heavy rock song. So again, the first half of this album is kind of on the heavier side. Gallows Pole is more like... It's a weird one, but it has that folk element to it. And Writer, traditional. So yeah, but it's good. Their version of it is pretty good, and it is nice, and it's got some catchy melodies and stuff. I like it. Tangerine is another of my favorite Zeppelin songs. I think Page wrote the whole thing, like lyrics and all, and I really like it. It's one of the first songs I learned how to play on guitar. It's got some really great fuzzy guitars on it. It's got a dreamlike quality that I think is just perfectly Zeppelin. This is what they do best. That's the Way. I like the live version of That's the Way more, but I have to give it credit for having the studio version. This is, you know, pretty good. I like it, but the live version on that Zeppelin DVD is also top Zeppelin. Bronyar Stomp is fun. I think it's about Robert Plant's dog. But, yeah, it's just a fun song. Another fun live song for them. And, Plant reportedly named his dog after Aragorn, often called Strider. Yep. Yeah. So you can see my interest align where they're, you know, Plant was super into Lord of the Rings, and so was I. And hats off to Roy Harper, which is okay. It's the only song I don't really go back to. But, man, it's so close to S tier. You know what? I'm gonna think about putting this in S tier because I do love Zeppelin 3. I think they really show their range on this album. They show that they can do some amazing stuff with acoustic guitars and just non-traditional rock instruments. They do great with folk stuff. They do great with heavy shit. They talk about Vikings and Aragorn and just awesome. So yeah, I do enjoy Zeppelin 3. That may in fact be their first S tier. I'll think about it. That's when we get to Zeppelin 4, which is easy S tier. Is it their best album? Is it one of the best albums ever made? I don't know. But we'll talk about it. First song, Black Dog. John Paul Jones wrote this riff. Maybe one of the most recognizable and coolest riffs in rock history. Very non-traditional song. I learned how to play it years ago. I don't remember, but it was fun. I do think Black Dog is a great start to the album. Another fun live one. It really is the 70s, and it's just 70s rock embodied in one song. And then you have Rock and Roll, which is car commercial song, sadly. That's how I view it now, which is why it is dangerous to put your songs in commercials. But it's still a great song. When you remove it from that context, Rock and Roll was a song about how people were, like, upset about Zeppelin going more acoustic and folk. And then here's this song that is, you know, been a long time since I did the rock and roll. Okay, he doesn't say it like that, but you know what I mean. It's very 70s rock once again, but it does have a lot of energy. I think it's a really cool song. Maybe just overplayed and overheard, but think about when the album first came out. Think about the context of it, and it's like even better. But for me, I just like listening to it, and I don't need to skip any songs on this album. Battle of Evermore is another Lord of the Rings-esque song. Sandy Denny's on it. It's a folk duet, I guess you could say, and there's mandolin. The mandolin is fantastic on this album. I purchased a mandolin partially because of this song. I love Battle of Evermore. I think it's one of their best songs. Again, they have a lot of one of their best songs. And, yeah, they make a lot of references to Lord of the Rings here, and it's great. Love it. Stairway to Heaven. Garbage. Yeah, not into that one. Also very underrated song. No, Stairway is pretty great. I mean, truthfully, even if I've even if I got into Zeppelin through Ramble On a little bit, it kind of was Stairway that sealed the deal. Stairway to Heaven, I heard on like some weird internet radio with crusty quality in the late 90s, early 2000s. No, early 2000s. And it blew me away. It's overplayed. It's a meme, like in Wayne's World, no Stairway. But yet, there is something about it. I really, really love the progression of the song. The mellotron. I love the way the drums come in. The 12-string guitar, which I have a Dan Electro 12-string, and I learned how to play that part, and it's just, it sounds great. But, man, yeah, I get why it's considered one of the best songs of all time, and I don't really argue with that. I really don't. So, overplayed, yes, but guess what? It's not one of those overplayed songs that I don't want to hear, whereas Money from Pink Floyd, I gotta be kind of in a mood for it. I can kind of listen to Stairway whenever. I think it's great, still. Maybe my personal... Not my personal favorite, actually, but it's close. Misty Mountain Hop is one of those songs that I can just... I hear, and it perks me up. Again, like I said earlier, it really does have that kind of music, that energy to it. The riff is phenomenal. I love Plant's weird vocal melody. It's about hippies, and yet also Lord of the Rings. Like, I think it's kind of him lamenting that we can't just escape to the Misty Mountains. Something like that, maybe, but I love it. It's just great. Good guitar stuff, too, like the solos, the melodies. And again, I'm discounting John Bonham's power on the drums. Really, probably in my top 3 drummers of all time. Stuart Copeland maybe is my favorite, but Bonham was maybe the best. That's my personal opinion. And here especially, his drums sound so fucking big. Four Sticks is okay, but it is, to me, the weakest song on the album. It's not a bad song, and the riff, it does get a little repetitive. So, I don't know. I'm torn on it, because really, you have an 8-song album here. Every song on this could feel like it is out of a best of. When I got this album, I thought it was one of their best ofs, because every song was that good. But Four Sticks is kind of on the weaker side, in my opinion. But still, I don't need to skip it. Going to California is another acoustic song, and it became like kind of a staple of their live sets, and I do love it. I absolutely love this song. It is beautiful. That's really all I can say about it. When the Levee Breaks, genuinely, for real, if I had to do a top 5 Zeppelin, it's in there. I think it is one of their best songs, for real, and I do think it is one of the best songs ever. Maybe I'm a little biased, because I listened to this album at the exact right time in my life. But listen to, if you're just watching this because you're like, alright, well, I like to see what Vinny likes, and just hear him talk about things he's passionate about, I'm gonna give you a little bit of homework. Maybe you haven't heard Led Zeppelin, maybe you only know When the Levee Breaks, or, Stairway to Heaven, or one of the other ones. Listen to When the Levee Breaks. Give it a shot. It's 7 minutes, but I think it's totally worth it. And I think it's, just, I don't know, I think it's an accomplishment. Guitars are great. The numerous guitar breaks are just fucking phenomenal. I'm always more on the Jimmy Page side of things. I pay most attention to him, but I love Plant's lyrics and vocal melodies. Bonham's drums are the star of the show, easily. Recorded in like a stairway with an echo rec on it, so that there's like a delay effect. But yeah, it's just every member is perfectly on point, and this grounds the whole album from weird fantasy shit back to earth. Love it. Phenomenal album. Phenomenal song. Please check out Led Zeppelin 4. Maybe you will like it as much as I do. I don't know. Houses of the Holy, I'm going to put on the lower side of A tier. And allow me to explain. I do love this album. Okay, I love this album more than I thought. Never mind. This is. Oh my god, do I put this in the S tier? Let me talk about it. Okay, let me figure it out. The Song Remains the Same is an album track, the first track on the album rather, that I think not my favorite of their big songs. I would say this is maybe one of my least favorites of their big songs, and also I'm not crazy about Plant's vocal effects. So keep in mind, Robert Plant blew his voice out. Part of it, I think, was pneumonia. Part of it was he sang like a crazy person for years. Live performances, etc., etc. There's bootleg recordings where you can hear the transition of Plant's voice into what it became, which is still good. I like the tone of Plant's, like, haggard voice, but I think for Song Remains the Same, you can tell that, you know, they tried to compensate by pitching up his voice, so I don't love the sound of it. I think the song is okay. It is not as good as anything on Zeppelin 4, but it's a decent starting track. I know people are going to have different opinions on this one, but genuinely, cool song, not cool enough. Just don't know why, can't articulate. Maybe it's something about the rhythms, the melodies, but whatever it is, it's just fine. However, the next song, the Rain song, I think is just amazing. It is purely a ballad of theirs. Also, this whole album is attributed to Plant, Page, or the whole band, so none of these songs are in any way like a kind of a, you know, an homage or a theft. So I respect the fact that all these are originals, but the Rain song is just is next level. It's just fucking next level. Another one I learned how to play on guitar because I loved it so much. Got me through a lot of hard times, and I think it is beautiful. For Rain song alone, this album may be S tier. But then you have Over the Hills and Far Away, another very Zeppelin-y sounding song. Sorry, well, yeah, Zeppelin-y, of course, but I mean Lord of the Rings-y. And it's just a great song. It's got a good, there's a good energy to it, good riff. It's kind of got a jauntiness to it, and yet that little guitar intro, it's something I learned how to play quickly. Well, not quickly, but like early on, as I said before, but I still remember how to play it. So for me, it's just something that, it's simple, but it takes a little bit of skill to pull it off right, and it's just a cool riff. But yeah, there's something about the song that makes me feel, it's like kind of it questions loneliness and like one's place in the world, and like, you know, where maybe you'd want to be in life, and it does it in a really masterful way. Plant was a fucking monster lyricist. He became one. Started out pretty good, got way better. The crunge... the crunge is okay. I think the crunge is okay. That's the best I'm gonna say for it. It's got a crungy name. It's like crust cringe. Very crungy, but yeah, it's okay. I like that it's got a different melody, rhythm. They're trying for a more, like, reggae thing. And, yeah, it's fine. Don't love it, don't hate it, it's there. Dancin' Days is pretty amazing. Do love that song. Jamaica is great, even if it is totally out of their usual kind of stuff. The other thing I love about Zeppelin is they try different genres. They try different types of songs. Jamaica and... not Dire Maker, by the way. Jamaica and the Crunge are very different from their usual shit, and I have to give them a lot of credit for stepping outside of that. So, yeah, Jamaica is a lot of fun. No Quarter is another, like, top-tier song. Like, their live versions of that, fucking phenomenal. It's got the great riff in the middle. John Paul Jones kills it on this song with the keyboard, and it's like a dark medieval night kind of song, and I don't know, I think it's phenomenal. I really recommend No Quarter as well. I could just keep recommending songs. And then The Ocean. So 8 songs, The Ocean ends it. Another awesome riff, good live song. Wish I could have seen them live so they could do this one. I'm gonna say it's A tier for me, but it is their best A tier album. I can't put it in S tier because I don't love Song Remains the Same. You may disagree with me. I don't love the grunge as much as some people. But other than that, it really is right on the cusp of being one of their best. Then we have Physical Graffiti, which is my favorite album of theirs, and maybe one of my favorites of all time. I'm going to go into the details of why. I need more chill music. This'll work. Okay, so it's a lot less energetic, at least. So yeah, this is a double album, and this album is just weird. I like weird, big, messy albums. Like, the White Album is probably my favorite of all time. That's what I listed in my top 100, excuse me. And I think this is, like, in the top 3, perhaps, but I kind of like... It's weird because I'm detracting points from the other albums for not having perfect track listings, and yet this has a very far from perfect track listing, and it is my favorite. I think it's because I like eclectic mixes of songs. I think it's also because the highs on this album are so high. And I just love it. I don't know why I'm being weird about that, but it's just, I can't help it. Like, White Album has some filler for sure. It's very, very clunky, but there's a part of me that loves that it is imperfect, and I think maybe loving the imperfections is part of what makes these albums so good. So yeah, I love this album, Physical Graffiti, the best. And Custard Pie is a great opening track. You can hear Robert's voice is different, but I like it. I think it sounds cool. I think he really made it work for him. The Rover. Again, some of these songs were actually recorded for Houses of the Holy sessions, or earlier, Zeppelin 3, 4. So you get different types of voice from Robert. Like, it's almost a B-side collection mixed with just a really solid album. And I'm actually going to put together the Physical Graffiti of just pure, like, Zeppelin from this time period. But, yeah, so The Rover is another just good, straightforward rock song from Zeppelin. Really enjoy it. That was House of the Holy song. In My Time of Dying is another one that is just fucking legendary. It's awesome. Great slide guitar. Another one I learned how to play. Big, heavy riffs. Dark lyrics. A live showpiece. And, just every member of the band is awesome on that one. The song Houses of the Holy is on this album, even though it's not the album Houses of the Holy. And I think it's a cool song. The reason it was left off is because maybe it sounded too similar to another one. But this has got a really great riff and just a cool, interesting feel to it. It's another one that they played on classic rock radio that I didn't love for a while, but now I think I appreciate it a lot. Trampled Underfoot has become one of my favorites. It's just great clav. It's fucking clavichord on that thing. It got a really good forward momentum. It's just more sex, Robert Plant sex lyrics, but with cars. So Jay Leno would like it. But I love the riffs. I love the guitar on it. Cashmere is their other big song right next to Stairway. And I'm going to say that maybe it's even better than Stairway. I'm not going to say for sure. But maybe. I love the riff. Lyrics are especially amazing. And it's Cashmere. Not a whole lot to say, but it is one of their best songs. And I don't get sick of this one either. They've done some pretty amazing live versions, especially the one on that DVD I mentioned too. Then you have the next disc, which is starting with In the Light. Another personal favorite, In the Light, is just cool. Weird keyboard sounds. And lots of interesting guitar progressions and more guitar scales that Jimmy Page is doing some guitar exercises on this one. But I love the riffs, and Plant's lyrics are appropriate. His voice sounds good on this one. It's one of those weird, mystical, mysterious bullshit songs, but boy do I love it. 8.5 minutes. It almost overstays its welcome, but it really doesn't. The Indian influence, I think a tabla, is it a tabla? It's the one that generates the tone. It's perfect. It's just perfect. So yeah, I love it. Branya R is a 2-minute song. It's a Zeppelin 3 outtake. It's nice. It breaks up the album a little bit, and it's just a really great little acoustic instrumental. I think it's beautiful and perfectly suited for the album. Down by the Seaside is a great song. It is a Zeppelin 4 outtake. I think Down by the Seaside is a weird song. The dichotomy of the two parts are so incredibly pronounced, but it's great. It sounds like a water song. So yeah, cool song. Very interesting approach, and I think the execution is there. But then you have 10 Years Gone, which may be my favorite song of all time. Which also is probably why Physical Graffiti is one of my favorite albums of all time. 10 Years Gone, I will admit I had a deep emotional attachment to it, just because it hit me at the right time when I needed it, and I think it is another recommendation, like, hey, you should check out this song, because it is Zeppelin at their best, and just some of the best classic rock ever. I don't really know how to talk about what I like about it. I'll try. What I will say is the guitar in particular. Love the riff. Love the guitar stuff at the end. The solos, the stacking guitars. At one point, Page just keeps adding more and more. It's beautiful. Plant's vocals and lyrics are both very good. And there is something very touching about what, you know, he's trying to do on them. And I guess, you know, he's talking about his life 10 years ago and a lost love and, you know, lamenting that it maybe didn't go anywhere. But she still shows up in his dreams. And I think the way he relates it to the bird analogies are very nice. Yes, there's bird analogies. So yeah, it's my favorite song. Bonham sounds great. Of course, John Paul Jones sounds great. But man, Plant and Page just kill it on this one. So yeah, it's of course. You know, like, of course I love this song. And as a result, I love the album. Night Flight on side 4 is pretty good. I like Night Flight. It's not amazing, but it's a Zeppelin 4 outtake. It's another bird song. But it's just got it's a little, show-tuney to a degree. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's just a fine song. It doesn't really do anything crazy for me. Wonton Song, though, I do love. God, that song is so cool. And I've seen a Zeppelin cover band do actually a really great job with it. But the way the chords sound, like, there's a lot of interesting harmonies happening in the guitars. And it's got a really great chorus energy. Plant sounds like he's gargling rocks on this one, but love it. Boogie with Stu, I don't love. It's a Zeppelin 4 song. Boogie with Stu is fine. It's Ian Stewart from the Stones on piano. It's just fun. Black Country Woman's also a lot of fun. How's the Holy outtake? And he does the Hey Hey Mama thing. But it's an acoustic folk song, and there's a plane overhead. So yeah, pretty decent song, but nothing special. And then the final song is Sick Again, which I love. So, just a really interesting topic, we'll say. But also, the song itself is just great. Good riffs, good chorus. And, man, again, the way they did their guitar stuff, like, the stacking of various sounds, it's just fantastic. So yes, I do love this album. But if you just did the stuff recorded in '74 for this album, which would be Custard Pie, My Time of Dying, Trampled Underfoot, Cashmere, In the Light, 10 Years Gone, Wonton Song, and Sick Again. Let's say, so how many songs is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So another 8-song album, basically, which would be, you know, their usual. That would be an amazing album. To me, their output in '74 was incredible. So, you know, all the little other songs complete the package and make it a nice eclectic mix of styles and Zeppelin-y type things. So I do love this album, even if there's a couple I don't listen to a lot. It's just, to me, it's physical graffiti. It's great. It's perfect in its imperfection. Something I've said before, but I mean that. So, how long has this video been? Jesus, 40 minutes, and their discography is so small. Okay, next we have... These next albums I'm gonna go a lot quicker because there's not as much. Presence. So Presence is their album from 76. I'm gonna put it in the B tier because I don't love a lot of this album. It's only 7 songs, and this is, I guess, after the height of their powers. Excuse me. And still some amazing stuff though, and I'm gonna go through it, but I do think after Physical Graffiti, where do you go? I wouldn't know. So, as a result, they did Achilles' Last Stand, which is again one of their best songs. So, great start. It's a 10-minute song. Maybe one of their best live songs. Some of the best guitar, some of the best riffs, some of the best progressions, some of the best drums. I mean, it's fucking incredible. So, at the very least, Achilles' Last Stand alone is S tier. Like this level S tier. But the next song is For Your Life, which is okay. It's kind of straightforward to me. I don't love it. It's 6.5 minutes, too long. Royal Orleans is nothing special. And that's just side 1. That's side 1 of the disc. So, Achilles is just like holding the weight of this album on his shoulders right now. I do love Nobody's Fault But Mine, which again is another great song. Kind of trippy and also Zeppelin-y trippy, you know? And it's got some great vocal stuff going on there. I do love that song. Candy Store Rock is, again, nothing special for me. It's okay. It's fine. It's like Jimmy Page sounds pretty good on it, but there's not really a lot to say. You know, Robert Plant was in a wheelchair recording a lot of the vocals for this album. He had an accident, and, you know, I still think he did an amazing job for all that said, especially Achilles. Hot Song for Nowhere, I don't even know how that song goes. That's how infrequently I return to Presence. I need to play a second of it because I literally do not know how it goes, and I don't mean to be, like, dismissive of it, but I need a reminder. It's fine. It's another Zeppelin by numbers kind of riff for me. It's a fun song. It's not blowing me away. It's alright. Yeah. T for One is pretty good though. T for One is like a 9-minute song. It's got a really great starting riff, and then it totally, completely changes into like a almost bluesy. It reminds me a little bit of something from Zeppelin 3 or 2. So I do like T for One. I think it's maybe overstays its welcome a little bit, and I'm sorry to be critical of it in that way, but that's my honest thoughts about it. I could listen to it, but it just, you know, it's a lot of it. At least some good instrumentals in there too, but yeah, truthfully, I don't think Presence is that great of an album. Like, come on, there's that kind of shit. So there's a little Since I've Been Loving You in there. But T for One, while good, Achilles and Nobody's Fault But Mine make this album B tier, where the rest of the songs, I think, drag it down. So here's, to me, a band that was on top of the world, that was one of maybe the best in regards to performance and songwriting, and even recording, like engineering, which is still some stuff that is, like, very forward-thinking, and especially if you listen to some of the stuff in headphones now, still sounds great. It's a little crusty here and there, but, like, there's a charm to the crust. I would say that Presence is just, you know, they're getting older, there's personal shit in the band, Page is dabbling in some pretty nasty drugs, and, you know, it's a shame, but not bad. Not bad. And again, they're at least still trying some different things. I gotta give them credit. They're doing what they do best, but then they try different things and just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. And it really sticks for Nobody's Fault But Mine. And Achilles is also just next level. So, they still had it. Oof. Yeah, Candy Store Rock is fine. So yeah, B tier. In Through the Outdoors, their last official release. And this is another one that I'm gonna put B tier, but actually, maybe... I don't know if I like it less or more. I'm not sure, but let's talk about it. In the Evening is awesome. Good live performance kind of song. I do like that song a lot. It kind of reminds me of a Nobody's Fault But Mine type song, and there's still some experimental shit. Truthfully, this may be their weakest album, but there's a lot I like about it. Unfortunately, Page was really in the throes of addiction during this, and I think Plant and Jones ended up writing most of the songs on this album. So, you know, it ends up kind of falling a little bit flat for me, and I do like, however, the experimental nature of like a lot of keyboard heavy stuff. You know, for late 70s, a band that's done pretty much everything. This is a 1979 album. They took 3 years away from their previous stuff. Music was changing tremendously. Like, punk was starting to take hold. New wave. They were beginning to be seen as like kind of outdated. Even within 10 years. It seems like 10 years isn't a lot these days, but for then, music was changing and evolving so rapidly that Zeppelin was seen as like the dinosaurs. So, I don't know. Maybe this album just came out too late. Maybe there were a lot of personal circumstances. Maybe you can't be on top forever. Maybe it's okay to realize that, you know, you're just doing different things. That said, what's here is, I think, really cool. Joe, the producer, bassist, Red Vox, good friend, loves this album. I don't know if he loves it, but we've talked about it, and he enjoys it. I enjoy it a lot. Southbound Suarez is a lot of fun. I love the keyboards on it. So, starting track is great, and Southbound Suarez is really great. Again, it doesn't really sound like Zeppelin, but maybe it doesn't need to. Yeah, it's just fun. Some good riffs, good piano, good vocal stuff. Fool in the Rain is one of their singles that you hear on classic rock radio, and I do think Fool in the Rain is great. Again, very different. But even at the end of their career, 10 years later, they're still trying different sounds. And I think it really works on Fool in the Rain. The song Hot Dog. Nope. Yeah, we don't... Listen, the meme for Zeppelin heads is that Hot Dog is their best song. Easily. Jokes aside from it being really their best song. Because it sounds like this. You know, Jimmy Page is going mental. I can't play too much. I don't want this video to get claimed, but Hot Dog is either their best song, or it's a complete joke, or it's just a bit of fun. And truthfully, I think it's just a little bit of fun, and it's fine. Carouselambra, I think, is impressive as fuck. It was supposed to be their big epic, and I think it is a cool song. It is very keyboard heavy, and Jimmy Page kind of takes a bit of a back seat, but when he's on, he's really on. And I think it's got some great, like, there's some really cool ideas in the song. Like, weird synthesizer shit, you know? I love that. That part's awesome. So yeah, there's something to like in this song. I think some people would like it more than others. But I personally think it's just a cool song that does some weird experimental shit for Zeppelin, and I love John Paul Jones, so of course I'm gonna love it. Not one of their best ever, but I think this album is better than people give it credit for. All My Love is next, and that's like a radio kind of hit. It's about Robert Plant's son, who he lost tragically. And even though the song is a little bit cheesy and overly sentimental, well, how could it not be? You know, here's a dude who is grieving and went through the worst pain you could experience as a father, Yet there is something really beautiful about it too, and honest and touching. So I like it a lot. I think All My Love is a cool song. To me, it deserves being one of their more well-known songs, and it's catchy. So it does a lot of different things. And then finally, I'm Gonna Crawl. I like it. Plant is weird on this one, but I like it. If people regard this album as their worst, I could understand that. But it's not bad. There's some really interesting stuff on this album, and some classic Zeppelin stuff, but also some very mediocre type shit too. But again, they never really released a bad album as far as I'm concerned. Even this album, which I think I like Presence less, but the height of Achilles' Last Stand is so high that I have to say I like Presence a little bit more. So, but this album, all the way through, it's different. It's more interesting than some people give it credit for, like I said, and John Paul Jones does some really cool shit on his synthesizers and keyboards. It does not sound like classic Zeppelin through and through, but it's pretty good. And, you know, Plant sounds different than he did 10 years ago, but I think he does the best he can, and he works to the strengths of his new sound. So, yes. So, very interesting. Would recommend if you're a diehard Zeppelin fan. Don't discount it, but it's just nowhere near the heights of either of these, you know, of any of these albums. S tier. I'm doing it. Houses of the Holy is S tier. Let me just check that track listing one more time. Rain Song, Over the Hills, Dancing Days, No Quarter, The Ocean. Those 5 alone, I think, are phenomenal. Jamaica, Crunge, and Song Remains the Same, while not my favorites, are still very good. I think it's S tier. I think for me, it's really, really bordering on A tier, but I'm going to give it S tier because this is Zeppelin at their best. You could argue that this is the tier list, and I'd be fine with this. Even Zeppelin 3, which I do love dearly, not perfect, but also damn close to S tier. So that's how good this band is, in my opinion. Goddamn Metroid music, you're really making this sound like it's a big deal. And finally, we come to their posthumous album. John Bonham dies in, I believe, 1980, which is very unfortunate because, you know, he was one of the best, and it tore everyone in the band apart, and they just figured, you know what, we can't really, we can't continue without Bonham. And fair enough, he was as vital to that band as anyone else. I know they've reunited with Jason Bonham, his son, and it was good, but, you know, it's really nothing that I wouldn't argue that they should have continued, because truthfully, this was the natural end. Bonham was one of the best. He was essential to their chemistry, from making albums and writing new music. And so, tragically, he dies, band breaks up, they release Coda 2 years later. Coda is not my favorite album of theirs. Bonus points for, you know, releasing new songs. And I appreciate that we get to hear some stuff that was not released previously. We're Gonna Groove is fun. It's live. Poor Tom, I don't love. I Can't Quit You Baby is a Willie Dixon song that, again, live for this. Ozone Baby's pretty good. Let me hear that. If I'm thinking it's the song I think it is, which it's okay. Darlene is pretty good. It's just 2 outtakes from In Through the Outdoor. Bonzo's Montreux, which I don't even know what it is. It's just drum stuff. Probably my favorite song on the album is Wearing and Tearing, which is like more of a punk feel. I think they were trying to, you know, keep up with what was going on. It says here, a statement that the group could compete with the punk bands popular at the time. Yeah, I think it's a cool song, but again, I view Coda almost as not even part of this because it's so different, just because it's their whole career, it's B-sides, it's outtakes. Still, I'm going to give it a C tier. It's not outright terrible, and there's some stuff that feels like, okay, now I know why this was left off the album. But it's still interesting to hear, and for a band that, you know, lasted 8 albums, it is nice to have another set of songs. But maybe not essential. If you're a Zeppelin newbie and you want to check this band out, definitely check out these 3. Definitely check out these 3. You know, these are pretty good. You might enjoy them. And Coda, you could just leave. I'm not going to talk about compilation albums, but they have some good compilations, best ofs, that have some little extra things on them. But I wouldn't, you know, I mean, just listen to the albums. They're that good. Like the Mothership album is a great compilation that you could like always return to, and it has a really nice selection. But you know, again, some of their little lesser known tracks are what makes Zeppelin so fun. And also in regards to live stuff, they did release their reunion album, which is pretty good. Like, yeah, they're older, Plant sounds different, but they weirdly sound very together. But I would recommend, you know, there's a lot of bootlegs where Plant is on fire. In 2003, they released an official live album, How the West Was Won, from 72 and 73. I think it's cool. There's a good selection of songs on there. It's nothing from Physical Graffiti because it's all their early shit, but it's a good live album. It's not listed here, but I would put it in the A tier, probably, for, you know, it's a different thing, but just lots of cool stuff, good live versions, a lot of music, and, worth seeing, because Zeppelin's whole appeal was not only were they amazing songwriters and instrumentalists and everything, but their live shit is mesmerizing. If I could go back in time and see one band at their peak, if I had to choose one, it would be one of the best Zeppelin shows I would go to. Whatever that means. However, the next best thing is the DVD they put out. They did Song Remains the Same, which was a, you know, like they did a movie, and it was a live performance of them at Madison Square Garden, mixed with weird fantasy sequences. Worth seeing for some of the weird shit alone, but keep in mind, it gets really bizarre. And some of it's not that great, and some of the live performances on that aren't amazing, but it's still worth watching. I mean, they do a live Stairway, they do a live Rain song, you know, there's this rock and roll Black Dog, Since I've Been Loving You, and then they mix in the concert footage with just other random shit, including, like, films, and, like, Bonzo's in a car, you know, Paige is, like, some wizard, Plant is Lord of the Ring, yeah, I don't know, so it's pretty fun, but it's not essential, worth watching, but I would say even better than that is the DVD they put out. It's just called Led Zeppelin DVD. And they should turn it into Led Zeppelin Blu-ray. But they did a lot of restoration on the footage, and they took some bootlegs and mixed them in. And I know there's a lot of editing on this one, but the whole experience is totally worth it. It is many, many musics, and some of the best versions. You get 1970, you get something from, a couple things from 1969, you get stuff from 73 at Madison Square Garden. You get Earl's Court, which has my favorite stuff on it, like Going to California, That's the Way. You get In My Time of Dying, Stairway, Trampled Underfoot. And then you get Nebworth from 79. So you get to hear a whole selection of their live catalog from their entire career. And the versions of Achilles and Cashmere on this, phenomenal. And watching them evolve as a band and seeing them get older and seeing what they sounded like from 1969 to 1978, is kind of fucking surreal. Actually, 79. So 10 years of Zeppelin, all accounted for. One of my favorite live things of any band. It is one of the reasons I got into music. It is one of the reasons I love classic rock and just rock in general, and guitars and drums and bass. You know, for me, I'll tell you straight up, I thought classic rock was lame because my parents liked it. I thought it was kind of lame because it's old and because new thing is best. You know, now the insult, we didn't have the insult of dad rock, but we definitely had other ways to make fun of people who like this music. But I was just out of high school, and I had a lot of friends in high school who liked this shit. I was going into college, and for me, it was a crutch. I thought it was amazing, the skill. I thought that the guitar really resonated with me, and I thought, in particular, for Zeppelin, the power of this band just made me want to be a musician. And I think I'm kind of barely one, but I still love playing, and Zeppelin and Floyd are probably the two bands that got me most into it. And, Zeppelin and the Doors and Floyd got me into classic rock as a whole. So they will always have a place in my record player or CD player or Spotify. Even if I've heard them 1,000 times. Even if, bro, you need to listen to lesser known bands because, there's so many bands out there that... Have you heard of Rabbit Foot? Have you heard of Wank Stain Carpet Treat? Have you heard of Tree Seaman? Yo, I'm sure that stuff is cool, but to me, there was a reason Zeppelin is one of the highest selling, most loved, best known bands of all time. It's because they live up to it. There was almost no band that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's plenty that chat members could list in the comments that had the chemistry and the improvisational skill and the pure musicianship of Zeppelin. They weren't perfect. Page was sloppy. Plant was messy with his voice cracks and everything, and but that's what makes it so interesting. They were so on top of their game for a couple years, for so many years actually of their career, that they just had this thing that was hard to look away from, and I think they influenced and inspired so many people from that point forward. So I know I'm sucking the big Zeppelin-shaped dong of this band right now, but I will say that they got me through a lot of hard times, that they are best band of that era, and I think, I think it's worth listening to. Just curious, what is the community's rank? So this is the community rank. I guess this just amalgamates all people's tier lists. I mean, yeah, sure, I could see that. So you can see a bunch of different people have different tier lists here, but yeah, that's mine. And I would recommend listening to Zeppelin 4, listening to Physical Graffiti, and then take it from there. Thank you, everybody. This was very long-winded. I did not expect to do a full hour on Led Zeppelin, but I'm glad I did because this was a nice deep dive. I want to do more of these, so again, let me know how you would prefer the format. I don't think I can deep dive into every band as much as I can Zeppelin, because I don't know enough about every band as much as I know about Zeppelin. But, Floyd, Zeppelin, Bowie, I can rank them, Beatles, Nirvana, and various other 90s bands and stuff like that, Radiohead. So if you'd like to see maybe slightly shorter ones where I review a couple different bands together and maybe don't go track by track, I'd be down for that. But let me know. And if you have any music suggestions for some copyright-free background noise during discussions, I'm also accepting that too. So thank you so much for watching. and I hope you have a good day, good night, good week, good month, if possible, and expect more of this crap at some point in the future. Okay. Goodbye.